Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Matt, and I'm back with a quick update on one of my higher conviction stocks, which is Skillz, ticker SKLZ. Now, real quick to get this out of the way, I typically post more videos than I have been lately, and I just want to share some good news with you guys. It's actually a very good reason why I haven't been able to post lately, and that's because if you are a very, very long time subscriber to me, and when I say very long time, I'm talking back in August, so not really that long, but going back to my earliest videos when I was doing self-improvement videos and some real estate videos, I actually just ended up putting the earnest money deposit down on my second flip coming up here shortly. And then on top of that, I've been working on developing a wholesaling company to then open up several different doors into real estate investing, which is one of my absolute passions for generating passive income and, eventually, hopefully getting out of that rat race one day. And so with that, I actually, having won that second flip and having had some developments on the wholesaling side, have been insanely busy over the last 2 weeks outside of my normal day job. So with that, guys, apologies. I usually like to provide updates to everybody on all of my higher conviction stocks. There are quite a few that I've been meaning to get to. I'm pretty sure I have a list somewhere around here on my desk where I've been meaning to talk about Bakkt. I've been meaning to talk about Roblox and whatever it is, all these other different stocks that I really enjoy. STEM, they had that fireside chat, been meaning to download on that. So if you're interested in following along into any of these other stocks that I've been covering, then by all means, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to hit that like button because it really helps me a lot just to get out in front of other people. And if you're not trading on Webull yet, then by all means, there's a link down at the bottom. You get 2 free stocks with a deposit of $100. I also get 2 free stocks, so it's definitely a way to support the channel. And lastly, if you're only investing in Skillz and have not actually tried the app yet, there is a link as well down at the bottom in order to get some free money in Skillz with a deposit over there as well. Now, keep in mind, I also get a little bit of a kickback from Skillz as well. So again, another way to support the channel. So with that, let's jump into a quick Skillz update. So looking over here at my screen, Skillz has been a crazy ride. So if you've been in Skillz for at least 2 months, it probably hasn't been the best ride for you. If you've been in Skillz for 3 to 4 months, you're probably finally getting some, some green in your portfolio. But most people out there probably only started getting in Skillz in the last 2 months. When I first initially started covering Skillz, it was actually right around like February 4th, I want to say, somewhere in that time frame when it peaked up to the upper 30s before it actually broke the 40s. So if you're looking at my screen here, I can't remember the exact date of that first video, but I remember talking about why I was so bullish back then and why I could definitely see this dropping off to the 30s and 20s. And it wasn't to be a bear. It wasn't to say that the stock wasn't worth that amount. Granted, it was a very high valuation compared to the revenue it was bringing in back in 2020. However, I was very bullish on it, and I saw that this type of rise right here from the end of January to the first week of February, that 1 week spike from the high 20s to the low 40s, it's just not very sustainable. Usually whenever you see a pop like that, you'll see a consolidation. The unfortunate part about this is that we didn't really see a consolidation. We saw a 2-month brutal beatdown where we had some pops, but nothing that ever came back to that level. So now getting to the present day, as we know, SPACs have just been absolutely obliterated on top of speculative tech stocks. This one, if pictured on a Venn diagram, would fall right in the middle of those two. And so it got a extra helping of beatdown from the market. But we've had some interesting developments over the last week. So after bottoming out around the $12 range, $12.50 range, as you can see here on April 20th, this past week, we had quite a rally up to the $16 range and then finishing the week out at a little over $18, which is amazing. I will take anything at this point, because when I first started investing, my first shares I bought were actually in the upper 30s. And then as it kept dropping, I actually bought more in the 20s, bought more as it dropped below 20s, and I brought my average down somewhere to 21. So I'm still in the red. But man, was it hurting when I was at like half my cost basis when it bottomed out in the 12s. Now having bumped up roughly 50% in that time from the bottom, I mean, it feels a lot nicer. So I can bag hold comfortably right now at this level and not feel too worried. So let's move on to the substance of the video. 2.5 weeks ago, the CEO of Skillz penned an open letter, and this was mainly to address some of the short attacks that were coming from people that just don't see the value in Skillz right now. And that having an impact on the price on top of the market beat down, just the whole market being red and tech just selling off and SPACs getting extra beat down on top of that. The CEO thought it was a good idea to go to seekingalpha.com and post an open letter. Now, just to make sure that we're looking at the actual open letter, I went over to find the filing with the SEC on a Form 8K. And on April 8th, you can see that this was posted with a copy of that letter in this filing. So I'd like to read some parts of this filing and share this with you and what my thoughts are on this open letter. First, I'm going to start with reading some of the stuff that I highlighted so that I just don't regurgitate the whole letter to you guys. I want to hit these high points. I wanted to share my thoughts about Skillz on Seeking Alpha because as CEO and founder of the world's first publicly traded mobile esports platform, I regularly have the opportunity to share our vision, performance, and outlook with institutional investors and financial partners. However, I rarely get the chance to speak directly to our individual shareholders about our business. While institutional investors tend to have greater resources to assess information on companies, all too often, the individual investor may find themselves exposed to agenda-based narratives from opportunistic sources without having the broader context. We built Skillz on the premise of leveling the playing field of creating esports for everyone. That mission certainly includes every gamer and developer, but it also extends to every stakeholder. That means we are on a mission for every gamer, for every developer, but also for every would-be stakeholder who wants to be part of the future of competition. I really like this opening statement from the CEO simply because this is their way of expressing their feelings and on everything that's been going on and the future outlook of this company to the average stakeholder like you and like myself. So this really spoke to me because it was just a really cool way to branch out to not the guys that are holding, $100 million in stock in this, not the people that are trying to short it and have all kinds of agendas to create their profits off of options trading or whatever it is. This is for the little guy that's holding, 10 shares, 50 shares, 100 shares, 1,000 shares, whatever it is. This is for us. I really like that. And that to me was really, really cool that the CEO started this letter that way. Moving through the letter, he goes into his past experience within other companies that have succeeded and failed. And he's very transparent as to, this is everything that I've done. And over the last decade, this is what I've been pouring everything into. I think that's really cool to be that transparent, to really talk about your history and how you got to this point. Something I wanted to highlight here was how he talks about that Skillz is a world-leading mobile esports platform hosting over 2 billion esports tournaments per year. Esports is still largely neglected simply because everything is around consoles, computer gaming, but not so much the phone, simply because it's a little difficult to be able to game on, let's say, I don't want to say pro, but on a highly competitive level when it comes to the phone. So understanding that, games are tailored a little bit differently when it comes to mobile gaming. And if you've used a Skillz app, you would understand the games they have aren't like Call of Duty or Fortnite or anything like that. So what kind of games do they have? Well, watching my previous videos or just hopping on the app, you understand that it's, blackout bingo or poker or blackjack games or pool or bowling or, there's a football game that I actually really enjoy on there. There's all different kinds of games on there, but they're very, very simple mobile games. And so understanding that, I want to go into this next part. Mobile has become the largest and fastest growing segment of gaming, generating a 23% cumulative annual growth rate over the past 5 years, driven by increasingly powerful mobile devices and faster wireless speeds. As a result, the mobile gaming market reached $86 billion in 2020, and that's expected to grow to $161 billion by 2025. So taking a step back, mobile gaming, $86 billion in 2020. What percentage of the pie did Skillz have? Their total revenue for 2020 was $230 million. $230 million of $86 billion is a very, very, very small amount. We're talking 0.25% roughly at $230 million for the year of 2020. And they market themselves as the leader in esports gaming, competitive gaming on esports via mobile. Now, as always, I don't want to just cover the pros. They have incredible year-over-year growth. They're making all the right different partnerships right now, such as the one with the NFL. They're doing all the right things in my book. They're spending a lot on marketing. They're spending a lot on developing, which some people see as a negative because right now they show an overall loss due to that spend. However, I see it as a positive because I understand that in the very infancy of a company, you have to spend on marketing, you have to spend on developing because that is what's going to bring more monthly active users in that spend money. This is absolutely necessary for the longevity of this company. So that doesn't scare me that they're operating in the negative right now. But what is going to take the company from 0.25% to 5%? At 5%, that would be incredible. At 10%, that would be astronomical. Now, I don't think that they're necessarily going to get to 10%, but what is going to lead to a very, very significant shift upward in their ownership of that pie? What I truly believe it's going to be, and I think this is probably fairly obvious, is a game that sets them apart, that is just absolutely virality, takes off. People want to get in, people want to spend money. You have someone like a Ninja or whoever that is live streaming that gets paid and partnered with Skillz to throw this on live streams on their phone somehow, some way, and they're able to game to an audience and basically be the advertising for the game and drive tons more revenue to the game. And as we know from my previous videos, there is a split between the revenue from what's brought in between the developer and the app. But a massive game is what would absolutely send this skyrocketing. Because once you bump that revenue from something that just absolutely hits viral, then it's absolutely just off to the races. But that presents more risks. If you have only one such game, what happens if that game leaves? What happens if that game just takes off to another app that's willing to give it a better split of the revenue that's coming in? Well, right now, I don't see many different competitors out there in this space like this. I've covered this also in my previous videos. There's links down below to those previous videos if you want to check those out and understand just more of a financial deep dive or just different thoughts or what the Skillz app actually looks like. If you don't want to download it, in one of those videos, I actually show you what it's like to go in there and play a game. But anyway, getting back to the point, what is really, really, really going to set this off is when you have not just one game, but multiple games. So as we know, they have a partnership with the NFL. When this game finishes getting developed, and I don't see that happening until the end of 2021, early 2022 potential release, that would be great when you have an NFL type partner that is pushing this game, sponsorship, sponsored by Skillz, and then there's ads during football games showing this game and how you can make money in a competitive environment, but that you don't have to play with money because they want to advertise to kids as well because the NFL is trying to build a base of kids that are going to be loyal fans to the NFL, and they're looking for esports games to be able to do that for them. So it's a win-win between Skillz and the NFL. And thankfully, Skillz isn't just a pay-to-play type of app. They also have tickets and all kinds of free ways to play all of these games in order to bring in those kids that, will benefit the NFL long term. But Skillz also really wants to get all that revenue from paying customers. Right now, they're sitting at roughly 16% of their MAU, of their monthly active users, actually being paying users. So the first big one, the one that we really have to pay attention to, and this is going to take time because we're right now about to enter May of 2021. By the end of 2021, we want to see how this game, this competition that's currently going on between developers for developing this NFL game, we want to pay attention to all those different games that are being developed, what that game is actually going to be, how the NFL pushes that, and what that does the following quarter for the revenue, for their monthly active users number, whether their advertising and their developing number goes down or whether it stays the same, but because of this bump up, they are no longer operating in a negative. And then we also want to keep an eye out for any kind of potential partnerships with an NBA or MLB and see if they can replicate this. Because then when you have multiple games like this that bring in tons of players that are spending money, now you have a company that is locked and loaded and ready to take off. Now, of course, it would always be super wonderful if there was a partnership with Fortnite or something like that. However, this is not how the app operates. The app has to be able to, without a shroud of a doubt, operate under the premise that the game is fair to both players, that the variables are exactly the same for player A and player B. If there is anything that can be construed as giving one person an advantage over the other, it won't be on the platform. If you take a look at any of the games on there right now, you're basically playing a game by yourself and you have somebody else that is playing the same exact game with, let's use cards for an example, the cards dealt in the same exact way, and it's a score comparison type of game. There's no way to construe that as one person having an advantage over another. In a game where you're playing head to head, like in a pool game, where because player A hits the balls and they bounce around in a different way, and then player B has a different shot setup, those are the kind of games that I see pushing the envelope a bit for Skillz to hopefully get to a point where they could have something like a Fortnite or any of these other shooter games that would also bring in a new massive amount of players that would probably love to spend money on the game, especially when they're watching their favorite esport streamers playing the game as well. So I see a massive vision that the CEO is probably trying to develop over the coming years. I am very bullish on this stock. I've been holding it since that $33 range. So I obviously want to see it go up, but mainly because I believe in this. And I really like the business model. I love how they do that split revenue sharing with the developers. Anyway, getting back to the letter. When we launched on iOS in 2014, we had over 100 games that most people had never heard of. When we had our first hit, it accounted for almost all of our revenue. 7 years later, that game has grown considerably and is still on the platform. Last year, games from our top developer were 59% of revenue, and while I can't predict which game will be our biggest this year, I can tell you that it will almost certainly be a double-digit percentage of revenue. This just goes into what I was talking about there, where their biggest risk is having that one game that is an anchor that brings all that revenue and then potentially leaving the service. This has always been a potential red flag, but that's how they have to start. They have to find that big anchor. Now, the real problem is going to be finding multiple big anchors. So me personally, I am paying attention to where if I see another partnership come out this year with an NBA, an MLB, or any other type of large corporation, then rocket. I try to be as non-memey as I can, but those are my key concerns, and those are the things that I see need to be addressed over time that would make me that much more bullish on this stock. Now, addressing one of the other key criticisms, which is the fact that they spend a lot on developing and marketing. I want to read this section here. We have seen the returns from that marketing investment reflected in our quarterly results over time. We recently announced a record revenue outlook for Q1 21 driven by double-digit growth in payers, resulting from both an increase in new installs and rising conversions of existing players into payors. In late March, we released our outlook for Q1 revenue of $80 million. The results are still preliminary and not final until we report results in our Q1 earnings call. Our outlook for Q1 revenue implies growth of 84% year over year and 18% quarter over quarter. This will also mark our 21st consecutive quarter of sequential revenue growth. That right there just keeps blowing my mind. I mentioned that in my last videos, where the amount of quarters that they have of just sequential revenue growth constantly going up. That is amazing. You don't want to see revenue ever go down, not in a company like this, at least for the next 2 years. And the fact that they're able to do that is amazing. But focusing on the main component here that I want to get into is that they are operating in the negative regardless of revenue growing. And that's mainly, as we've mentioned multiple times now, due to marketing and developer costs. Now, as they spend money on this, the reason it is so justifiable, and I want to go a little bit deeper than just, oh, it's in its infancy. This is normal for a company that is still growing. Taking it a step further, the reason this is so important is because what this spending directly leads to is monthly active users going up. You don't want somebody that is going to play the game for a day and then say, I'm never going to play again. You want to see monthly active users averaged out over months, constantly coming back. The average amount of time that a monthly active user spends on the app is an hour. That right there tells you how engaging it is. Once they are in and they're bought into a game that they like, because there's so many different games, right? You may not like one game or another game, but you may find that one game that you really enjoy. Now, that spending that goes into marketing and developing of these games in order to get those monthly active users in, those are one-time spends for those markets. So let's say they are marketing to a particular demographic or niche or whatever it is. You've captured some monthly active users. Those monthly active users are expected to stay long-term with the app. As that happens, the spend that you incurred to get those monthly active users averages out and goes down. And the idea is that the amount of revenue brought in from these monthly active users over time exceeds what you spent in marketing and in developing. That's what they see. They see that long-term value exceeding what the cost is to acquire that monthly active user. Now, of course, we're early on, and so as they're operating in the negative and that negative is getting bigger and bigger, we need to see this happen over time. We need to see that negative slowly go away. We need to see it go into the positive. We need to see that start growing as well. So that's something that I'm keeping my eye out on, and I just want to share with you guys as one of my concerns, the second largest thing that I'm going to be paying attention to over this year as we keep seeing these earnings calls come out. Now, of course, we've all got our favorite ETF investor, Cathie Wood, who is absolutely bullish on Skillz and just continues to buy. I'm not going to go into all the specific buys that she has, but as it was dipping, she bought more. She kept buying. She's, I think, has Skillz at roughly 1.7% of her total fund right now, which doesn't sound like much, but ARK is just so massive that even at 1.7%, the number is mind-boggling. Going to this article over here from Seeking Alpha that talks about Cathie Wood's comments on Skillz as she was buying shares during the dip. ARK Invest defends Skillz after short attack as it adds shares. So I just want to read this one part. The recent allegations against the company range from its revenue recognition practices to its recent NFL partnership. After reviewing the reports, we believe the claims to be either exaggerated or incorrect. We believe these short reports stem from a misunderstanding of the company, its position in the gaming ecosystem, and its future ambitions. Skillz is a leading mobile games platform that enables competitive esports style play. Leveraging its patented matchmaking technology, Skillz hosts billions of casual esports tournaments worldwide per year. Again, I love Cathie Wood's team that she has that looks into all of the different stocks that get added into the different funds that they currently actively manage. I learned this, I realized this, I should say, back when I did my genomics research and learned all about ARKG. And I was learning about all the different companies and all the different research that the ARK ETF, ARKG actually does for this, the team around that. And I realized, well, the best genomics stock to invest in really is just ARKG, because they are very good at selecting what is going to be disruptive and absolutely blast off over time. Now, please don't use that as means to just go and buy ARKG. As always, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't buy anything I mention on this video. Just use this as a launch pad for your research to then decide yourself on how you want to invest in the stock market. But with that, one more item I want to jump into is that the earnings call Q1 2021 is actually coming up on May 4th, 2021, and we actually have some guidance from Skillz. So they are expected to beat analyst expectations for revenue. Monthly active users is expected to fall right where it's expected to. and paying monthly active users is also expected to fall right where analysts are expecting it to. Where it looks like they are going to have more of a loss is on the adjusted EBITDA, so earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. This is most likely going to be contributable to what we've been talking about with all their spend on marketing and developing. So last thing I want to talk about is just showing you a quick excerpt here from the Skillz website on the Game Developer Challenge. So if you haven't watched my last videos on Skillz and you're just interested in what the NFL partnership is, more or less, there's a Game Developer Challenge where many different developers are working on producing a game on the Skillz app that can use NFL team logos, the NFL logo. They get pushed through the NFL will be pushing it, Skillz will be pushing it on their app, and I'm just really going to be paying attention to how this develops once it's released. The biggest thing I'm going to be paying attention to is that earnings call after this gets released to see what kind of an impact it had. So with that, guys, that's all I have for now. I'm still bullish on it. I am just bag holding for now, but they're a little lighter ever since that rebound this past week. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and until next time, guys, see you.